Today we're going to talk about how to power up and home and touch off tools in a HAAS CNC lathe. This one does not have a tool setter on it, so we're going to have to actually touch off the part to the tools to the part in order to set our correct X and our Z. There is no Y axis like you find in the mill on a lathe. There's X, Z, and then sometimes if you have live tooling, there is a C axis. We do not have that here. We're going to work simply with an X and a Z axis to set our tools. All right, so the first thing we need to do is we have to pull our emergency stop and hit our power on button. Then we have to wait. And it's going to warm up here. It's going to come up. It's going to give us all of our warnings, things we want to do. Keep our body out of there. Don't touch moving parts. Don't bypass safety systems. And we're going to talk about that last one just a little bit here in a moment. So this takes a little bit to come up. It just really wants to give you time to read it. So you actually do read it. Now, you come up with this and you have an alarm 1 of 1. Servos are turned off. So we keep hitting reset until we clear the alarms. Once all the alarms are cleared, you'll see no active alarms. No active alarms. Now we have to do a power up restart. Now I'm going to close the door because without the door being closed, the safety mechanism will tell you that it's not safe, it's not going to do it. So I'm going to close the door here. And now I can hit power up restart. It's right next to the reset button. Hit that once, and now we see that the X and the Z are homing themselves out. When you see them both turn black, backlit, and the X and Z are green, you know that you've gone to machine home. You have to home out the machine so that it knows where it is at. The travels won't be over-traveled. It's like setting your GPS when you first start out on a trip. You've just set the GPS, so to speak, of this machine. It says, okay, I know where I'm at. Now tell me where I'm going. Okay, so we're going to go back to the safety feature. I actually have it disabled up here on the top. There's normally a key up in the door right up here. And I have pulled that key out and put it over here. I have overridden the safety features. This is for educational purposes and for filming. Don't ever take this out. That's what it said in the beginning. Do not override or bypass safety features. We're going to do it today and only today. Don't ever do it. It's how you get injured. All right. So we've got the machine powered up and the X and Z homed out. Next thing you need to do is load a piece of stock. This is a power chuck that grips and clamps and unclamps on its own. We have a foot pedal on the floor that I have to step on to clamp and unclamp. It doesn't move very much, and you don't want it to. You get good power. So we simply set our piece in here. Now, today I'm not going to run a program, so I'm not concerned with how far out from the chuck my stock is sitting. But if I were to run a program, I would have to check my program here, find out what the deepest Z is, and Z is always in the axis of your spindle. So this is my spindle here, and just like on a machine, a milling machine, your spindle would have the cutter in it, and that is your Z axis. On a lathe, the spindle is what's turning the part, not the tool, but it's still the Z axis. So now our Z axis has become a horizontal. So you want to keep that straight. Z is always the spindle that's turning. So I'm not concerned with how far it sticks out of the chuck because I'm not going to actually make a part. But if I was, I would want to come over and check the deepest Z I could find and make sure I exceed that by at least 1/8 of an inch, 0.125 in decimal. All right, so now I've got that clamped in there. It's good. Again, I've overridden that, so we're going to walk back over here. We've got everything done. I want to go into hand jog on the control here. That's going to allow me to hand jog the machine. So I'm going to go to a hand jog, then I'm going to go to Z, and if I look up here, I see that every click of this hand wheel now is going to be 1/1000th, 0.001 of an inch. So I'm going to change that over here with this button to 10 thousandths, 0.01, and I see that's what it is. So now every time I click this thing, I can see my turrets moving in. Turret is another name for the automatic tool changer. See that moving in? Well, we're going to send it back out here, and we're going to call up, because in our program we're calling up tool 5. So we're going to call up tool 5. We go to MDI, erase whatever you have in there. Now, you don't use an M06 like on a mill. In a lathe, you only use the tool number and the offset number, because you can have a tool 5 with an offset of 15. But we're going to go T for tool, 505. That's tool 5, offset 5, or T505 I should say. Right enter. It comes up here in my MDI screen. Now, because I've got the safety key pulled, you'll be able to see the turret move. I'm going to slow it down so it doesn't go quite so fast. Hit cycle start right here. Now, that's tool 5. Inside on the side of the turret, you can see right here, inside of the turret, if you were to look at it, it has the numbers. Don't worry about that right now. If you look in there and see tool 5, it's going to be just above it. You say, well, that tool's upside down. Well, that's because our spindle's still turning like this, and we're cutting on the back side. Our tool changer's on the back. It's a slant bed lathe, and we're coming down, and we're going to cut. So that's why all the tools look like they're upside down when they're in this position. That's quite all right. Again, I'm going to go back to hand jog now. You never want to pull a tool change up where it's sitting close to the spindle. If you have a longer tool than what you think, it could come around and actually smack your part, doing a lot of catastrophic damage. So I go back to hand jog, Z. I'm still in 10 thousandths increments, and I walk it in. Now I'm going in negative, because if I was touching the material, I'd be reducing or removing material. So I'm minusing or subtracting material. So think of it, that's what I'm going to be going to negative in the hand jog. So I'm going to come over here. I'm going to bring it down in X now. Again, I'm coming in. If I had a big diameter, I'd be removing material. So I'm going negative X, bringing this down. Get it close. Now you got to get your noggin in there. Okay, I need to move back in Z just to be sure. I'm going to move back a little bit. I'm going to come down in X again so I can see it's just over top of the part. Now, you've set it up for that. Let's go back to MDI, manual data input. I'm the little man putting data in. That's what I always say. So MDI, erase my tool change. I need to start my spindle. So S for spindle, we're going to say 1200, so that's aluminum. 1200. I've got to turn clockwise, so that's an M03. Right enter. Now it's up here. I push the button. Normally, again, you'd have to have, I'm going to turn the light on too, maybe. There. So now normally you would have to have this door closed, but this, and you'd have to look through the window. So now I'm going to go back into hand jog over here, Z. I'm going to get it close. That's pretty close. Go down to 1 thousandths per click. We don't want to smash into our part. And just come over here until we see it make a chip. There's a chip. I'm going to walk it off in X. Now I'm going to move in a little bit more in my Z so I know I clean up. There's X again. Now we're going to bring it down negative in X because we're removing material. Go all the way to the middle and walk it back out. Stop your spindle. It's right underneath your override. Stop. Now, since you're setting your Z, do not hand jog the Z or you'll lose your position. So now that I've got a Z I want and I'm in tool 5, I come over here and I cursor over to my Z location for tool 5. And all I have to do then, since I've cut the face of the Z, I want to measure that. So I hit Z face measure. And then right up here it's going to change. There. So now I know from my home position of the machine where I homed it out to the face of that part, this tool is negative 9.029 inches away from home. So I've set the Z of that tool. Now I have to set the X, or the diameter. So now I'm going to walk it in, going hand jog, Z, walk it in a little bit. I turn my spindle back on. Since I've already set a spindle speed, I don't have to do that again. I simply have to come down to my overrides, hit forward, my spindle's back on. Now I'm going to go into X. I'm going to walk down my X. And if you hit it by 2 or 3 thousandths hard, or 10 thousandths, you're not going to blow anything up, but still want to move with caution. There, I've just touched off. I go back into Z now and walk it off my part. Let's stop it down here again and see what we have. Well, if I rotate this around, I can see that it didn't clean up all the way around. So I may not get a true measurement. So I'm going to come back over here and turn the spindle back on again. Come into my X, bring it down a few thousandths. We'll say 10, that's an appropriate amount. Go back into my Z, negative because I'm removing material. Walk it back off. Stop it. Now since I'm setting X, I don't want to move my X. I can move my Z even by 10 thousandths here, and I can walk that out of the way. All right? Now I've got that set. So now I need to know, that's between a 1 and a 2 inch diameter I'm cutting. It's about 1.25, 1 1/4 when we started. So I'm going to get a 1 to 2 inch micrometer, and I'm actually going to measure that part now and see what I have. All right, according to this, I have 1 inch, 200. I got another line for 25, and I'm 4, so that'd be 29, just past that. We're going to say 1 inch, 229 thousandths is the diameter. Now, I'm setting, I cursor back over to my X, using these cursor keys here, and I say I'm measuring the diameter of the X, so I hit X, diameter measure. It changes to that. Now it says enter the diameter, which means enter the diameter of the part. Because what we did here is we told it where the tool was setting when it was on the outside diameter. We want to know where the tool is setting when it's at 0, the dead center of the spindle. So we know it's 1.229. We're going to come down here, cancel out what we don't want. I'm just going to put the whole number in, 1.229, and if I hit right enter down here, it should add it to this. If the number gets bigger and negative, you know you've gone the right way, because you're still coming down in the negative on your X to get to the center. Now you say, well, how do I know if I'm right? Very simple. We're going to tell that tool to go to X center. So I come back into MDI, get rid of this, I don't need that, erase program right here. I'm going to hit G00, that's a rapid move. G54, work offset 1. X00 point. I want to go to the 0 of X, and don't forget to put in your decimal. If you do, it's like 0 what? Is that a 0 or a 0.0 or what is that? So you have to put the decimal in so the machine knows where it's at. If you feel more comfortable, you can put X 0.0 in there. I'm going to hit right enter, get it up in my MDI. My rapid's at 25%. We're going to slow it down to 5% so you can really see the thing creep down. We're going to hit the cycle start, and it creep down. Now, I go into hand jog, and then I'm going to walk over my Z, close. Don't be careful you don't smash in anything now. You don't need to have to redo everything. And I bring it in close like that. And now I stick my head in there and I literally look at the end of the part. And it looks pretty good. Now, you're not going to be able to tell if you're off by 5 thousandths or 10 thousandths. So you measure your first part after you've cut it. If it's a little small, you're going to have to adjust it out. If it's a little big, you can adjust it down. If your program calls for cutting the part off, measure the part before you cut it off. You may be able to still adjust and save the part. That's my X. I know that works, so I'm going to walk that back out. Hand jog X, walk that back out, and X, get that out of there. Now, I'm going to go into MDI again, and I've got this. I'm going to just cursor over to my X. That's the only thing I need to change. So I'm going to say Z 0.0, and I'm going to hit the Alter button. And all that'll do is just change that to a Z now. Now it says go look for the Z home position on that part. So we're going to go and hit cycle start again. It moved over. You didn't see it move very much. Let me go to hand jog and walk that back out of there a little ways. Now we can see it move a little better. So I'm going to hit this. And there's home. You can come in with the X again in hand jog, X, and you can walk it down now, get it close. You can go over here and look at it. That looks pretty good that way too. So we set our first tool. I'm going to go through a second tool quickly just so we can see how that's done. So I know that my X and my Z are good on that tool. So one thing I should cover, I'm going to hit offset up here and bring the offset page down to work offset. And this machine, since we don't have a tool setter, our Z and our X offsets will always be 0. All right? So if you come in here and see these have different numbers in here, 0 them out. If this would say like be -4, and you'd set that and you'd go to send that Z to where it was at, it would find that chuck with that tool, and we'd have a big thunk and no fun. And if you're like me, you'd quiver in your liver for a minute. So we're going to move this all back. I'm going to go ahead and hit X. We always want to send the X home first. This machine doesn't have a tailstock, but if it did, we would not want to run that turret into our tailstock. So we're going to hit X, 0 return, home G28. And it's going to go up to home. Now I'm going to run the Z a little faster. I'm going to run it to 100%. Now we're going to do a Z, 0 return, G28 home. This, I want you to see how fast it goes so you understand why when you're testing things out you don't run 100%. Okay, you don't want to be 100%. You can't react quick enough to stop that before you have an accident. So when you're setting things up, shut her down, get her slow. All right, so now we're going to go and do tool number 6, because it's a similar tool. So now that I'm back out of the way, MDI, erase that. T606, no M6 or anything. Right enter, hit the button. I'll slow down the rapid again so the turret goes slower. Boom, and I've got it. There is my T6. Now, put my tool away up here real quick. Since I've already touched off the first tool and taken a cut, I don't want to take a cut for the second tool or I'll change the Z. And then the first tool will be off. So I'm going to use a piece of paper. And we're going to use a paper method. Now, you say, well, I might be off by the thickness of the paper. Measure the paper. So I'm going to measure the paper here. And it tells me that I am about 3.5 thousandths, 0.0035 thickness on my paper. So we'll keep that in mind when we're actually doing this. So I'm going to come over with my hand jog, Z, get it over here, come down in X. Again, it's always negative when you're going this way and that way because we would be theoretically subtracting material. All right, so I'm going to come down. I know there's a little bit of a burr on here. That's okay. Notice I drug my finger this way across the burr and not that way. That'd be like putting your finger on a sharp knife. Just simple things we don't think about until we're saying ouch. All right, so bring it in close. Go down to 1,000ths, and now I'm going to step over here, and now I'm going to put it in here between the part and the tool and walk it in a little bit at a time in the Z, until I get it to touch. Now, the tendency is to get impatient and start cranking faster and faster as you get close. Don't do that. Okay, so that's tight. So now I know I need to do my Z face. Move over to Z, hit my Z face measure, and now I see that it changed to negative 9.032. So now I want to take care of that paper thickness. So I'm negative 0.0035. Negative because I'd be subtracting material. I go to that, I hit right enter, There, it changed it by 3.5 thousandths. I've made up for the thickness of the paper. The finish is right where it needs to be. So now I back that away in Z. Okay, I've got that backed away in Z. I move it back up in X and get it out of there a little ways. Move it back over in Z above the part. And I turn the spindle back on. I don't have to set spindle speed because I did that the first time. I haven't changed anything. Hit forward, spindle comes on, go into X. I'm still in 1 thou increments, coming down. You don't have to worry if you hit it a little bit too hard, just don't smack it real hard. I take a cut, move in Z. Okay, stop the spindle. Don't move the X, again, because they're doing an X measurement. I'm going to up my rapid here, or my feed, get that out of there. Since I'm doing a 1 to 2 inch micrometer again, since it's a 1 to 2 inch part, I'm going to come in here. I'm going to get that measurement. Lock it. Now this is a finisher, so I want to be pretty close on this. So if I look at it, it's 1 inch 213. I'm going to come up here to the tenths on the barrel. 213 and 5. So I get over to X, I hit X diameter measure now, watch this number change. There, so that's the diameter at the outside of the part. I add into that now because it says enter diameter. I'm going to cancel out this one. I'm at 1 inch 1.2135. I enter that in, hit right enter, and it changes it right up there in the screen. Moved it in. Now, want to make sure that's right, so we're going to come over to MDI. We've already got it set G00, G54, Z0. We want that to be an X0, X0 point. Don't forget that decimal. And now we're going to hit alter and hit cycle start. It came down. Now I go to hand jog, Z, walk it in. Again, walk it in when you get close. Don't get in a hurry. Don't need any big thumps. Stick your noggin in there again. Looks good. So that's good. We want to check that Z now, so we're going to walk it out in X. I'm going to walk it back in Z so you can see a little movement. So it's there. So now I'm going to go back into MDI and change my X back to a Z. Z 0 point. Alter. Changed it. Now, just hit cycle start. And I always used to keep my finger on the feed hold in case something goes where I don't want it to. I'm right there to touch it off or stop it. I come over, take my X, walk it down, hand jog, walk it down. Looks great. So now I'm just going to send that home. X, always first X, X, 0 return, home G28. Let's go a little faster. Now, Z, 0 return, home G28. Okay, you've powered up the machine, you've homed out the machine, you've touched off tool 5 and tool 6. That's what we're going to use in our program. We're all set to go.